I like listening to classical piano music. I deeply enjoy the way it makes me feel. It makes me experience observing rain fall on the leaves from my window or like a warm bowl of chili on a cold December day. Today, I wanted to design a similar experience for you. We'll play a short clip, and I want you to think of one word this makes you feel or think of. Now, this is maybe not the soothing experience I talked about, but raise your hand if you thought of a music box. Okay, raise your hand if you thought of a lullaby. I'm concerned, what kind of lullaby are you guys listening to? Raise your hand if you thought of distorted, slightly annoying music. Yeah, that's most of us. Okay, I have some skills, but I don't know how to read minds just yet. So I won't waste your time trying to guess what you thought of, but what I can tell you is that the music actually spelled out something. You want to see it? Isn't that magical? The video you just saw was a reading optophone. This was a device invented in 1913 by an inventor named Fournier for blind readers that helped convert text into music so visually impaired people could read books. While this may sound like a complicated way to read, audiobooks just weren't a thing back then. This was not Fournier's first invention. He had previously invented an exploring optophone that he introduced as the device that can help blind people hear light. Yeah, you heard that right, hear light. He designed a reading optophone soon after when a blind solicitor wrote to him that the blind needed something that'll help them get jobs, not hear light. Initially, you could only read a couple words per minute, but the device was embraced by a lifelong tester, a blind girl called Mary Malone. Mary continued reading the optophone for the rest of her life, reaching 60 words per minute by 1972. The reading optophone, even though we don't really use it today, it's not just an obsolete piece of history. It laid the groundwork for optical character recognition, or OCR. Every time you deposit a check through your banking app, you use optical character recognition, and you have the reading optophone to thank for it. But who made the reading optophone possible? In the tech space, there's a tendency to boil down the narrative to the lone inventor trope. Even though Mary spent a significant portion of her life trying to incrementally better the optophone, and for all we know, the device might have never been invented in the first place had it not been for the feedback of the blind solicitor. Yet, we know very little about them. And this continues to happen to this day. You think Facebook, you think Mark Zuckerberg. You think Apple, you think Steve Jobs. And maybe it is just easy to boil down a story to the invention and the inventor, but how we tell stories matter. And today, I want you to imagine a slightly different story. When you think of Apple, I want you to think of you. And when you think of Facebook, I want you to think of you. And when you think of the reading optophone, I want you to think of Mary, because physical and digital products evolve and change, but what's always there is you, is humans. Everything around you is made for you, but it's also made by you. And maybe you're sitting there wondering, how is me watching videos on my phone at 3 a.m. me helping build YouTube? My good news for you is that you actually are, not just trying to make you feel better about your doom scrolling habits. The truth is, product designers like myself don't actually know what people want from our apps and websites, so we try to empathize with our users to try and imagine what they want. But that's just not enough. The best designers don't empathize with their product users. They go one step forward and let people take the front seat. But maybe now you're asking to yourself, how would someone design their own experience? One way is to get really mad when you're frustrated with an experience and make sure that the designers know that you're mad. You see, I didn't know how to cook when I moved here for school when I was 18, and now I think I can cook really well. But in getting from point A to point B, in terms of my cooking skill level, I have researched and tested so many apps and websites for helping people cook. And during this process, I've gotten so mad so many times. Ma'am, I'm just looking for a lasagna recipe on your blog. I don't want to have to scroll through your life story and 5 different clickbaits just to get to the ingredient list. Among the many apps and websites I've used, there was one meal prep app that I was using recently. At first, I really liked it because it was free, flexible, and had an integration with grocery shopping apps. It even had a food waste estimator that made me feel good about myself, or bad, depending on how I consumed that week. Despite all this, I stopped using it after a while. For me, the variety in the recipes they offered were just not enough. I had a $3 pro subscription with them, and I canceled it. Big loss on their part. And wrote to the feedback team about my problem. And they wrote back to me. As you can see, the gist of their response was positive, and they agreed that they wanted to have more diversity. That's a good start if you ask me. They said they're a small company, and diversity doesn't happen overnight. But if you look at their culinary team, their 5 chefs are all middle-aged white women. Now, I don't have anything against these professionals, but I truly believe that to make inclusive products and experiences, you need an inclusive team. If you really want change, we have to ask the why questions before we latch on to the easiest solution. In case of this app company, a checklist of diverse hires might provide a temporary solution. But if they're really serious about the experience that they provide, they should dig a little deeper. Why isn't our team diverse already? What about the company culture attracts a certain demographic of professionals? Would there be a disruption needed in their core values and what they want to reflect as a brand? See, I can speak to brands because I've built one. About 2 years ago, during COVID, I started an interdisciplinary club called the UX Collective at the university. And my aim at that point was just to connect with other students who were interested in learning about digital design together. Today, we have close to 300 students from different colleges. Our club and executive team is very diverse in terms of the disciplines and the demographic we attract. But this did not happen overnight. Inclusion was a core value of our brand, starting from when we had 4 members, and it is now that we have about 300. We have had a diversity, equity, and inclusivity coordinator who makes sure that our brand and voice tries to include everyone. We also don't gatekeep. There has always been a disconnect in tech, arts, and business, and our club focuses on welcoming students of all technical skill levels. When we host hackathons, we look outside of the next gimmicky app that can solve all your problems and instead focus on social impact. Like this one. We have had students designing an app for older adults that help them combat loneliness. But that's not all me or our executive team. It's our members. They make the community. While many of us might not have dived into the world of meal planning or being involved with the university club, I'm sure there's moments of disruption all the time in our daily lives. Like when you're trying to submit a form and you're left feeling confused because you didn't receive any confirmation. Or when you play a video game where there's no characters that look like you. Most of us will get irritated for a little bit and then move on, but we need to let people responsible know that this is not okay. We deserve better and we deserve the best. And to make that happen, we need to get mad when things are not working for us. Inclusive products take a lot of work to build, and they're always a work in progress. We encounter it so often, and we may not even realize it. And to wrap this all up, I have a little story about my friend who told me the story about her sister who just started university. She would often ask her friends to come study at a cafe with her, but every time she asked, they would make an excuse, and she was left confused. Did they meet without her? Did she say something to upset them? And then one day she finally asked, and they said that they wouldn't go out with her because they just couldn't afford to go. She had never considered that experience because she had never lived through that experience herself. But that moment changed her. Now, every time she'd go out, she'd offer a variety of options or make sure activities were in everyone's budget. So inclusivity goes beyond accommodating people with visual impairments or ethnic diversity. You cannot not expect to know everything because you'll never have experienced everything. And today, I want you to ask yourself just one question. Ask yourself, have I been inclusive in my personal life and in my organization? And if you realize that you've made mistakes, know that you'll make more. But always try to keep learning, because at the end of it, you and me will feel seen. Thank you.